In this slide, I want to talk about traditional distribution channels where there were important independent intermediary distributor wholesale creatures. I mean, historically, wholesalers would distribute whole goods, whereas distributors were distributing ingredients. So think of OEM ingredients that go into manufacturing. I distribute semiconductor chips that go into toasters, or I'm distributing um, you know, sugar, salt, lard, and whatever that go into to baking, products. So at any rate, in these distribution channels, there have been some channels where they've gone from rocket roadsters, banging on doors, hi there, let me be your buddy, how about me shooting some prices at you, here's the product, what kind of product you need, what kind of fires can I put out, that kind of good old-fashioned, you know, product pushing, selling paradigm. To, wait a minute, we're going to marry one distributor, that's it, and we're going to figure out how to get the stuff to us and through us at the absolute lowest total procurement cost. We're not interested in paying a distributor 14, 15, 18, 25% margin. We'd like to pay a distributor 6% margin, but their cost to serve's got to be at 5 so they can make a profit type of thing. So in the 80s, without going into detail, accents of history, a drugstore chain decides to close down their central distribution center that's been unionized, and they've got real problems with the unions, is closing down all the stores, and to outsource this to some distributor. They go to McKesson, who had been doing it, was a consolidator of drug distributors at the time, and said, you've got a footprint that covers our stores. Could you take care of all the distribution? They said, sure, we could at 14%. They said, no, 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 we want our warehouse at 5%. And McKesson said, yeah, but that's a very different, buy-sell model when you have your own captive distribution center. So, well, let's mimic that. So what came out of that was sort of the McKesson Systems Contract Division as opposed to the Full Service Division. But very quickly, the whole industry switched thereafter from rocket roadsters calling on customers or customers phoning in inside salespeople at 14% margin with a 14% cost to serve, and nobody was making any money, to only margins of 6% out of the warehouse, but cost to serve even less. So they're making good money and getting 100% share of an account and getting orders that were 12 times larger. There was no inside sales. All orders had to be entered electronically by the drugstore personnel, no order takers, from McKesson or whoever, into the drug distributor's computer to create these huge orders and so forth. The same flip happened in the wholesale grocery channel with enormous consolidation. In 1960, there could have been over 1,000 different family-owned wholesale grocery distributors that consolidated down to just a few that mattered by 1986. At the time, the king was SuperValu. And what I loved about SuperValu at the time was they had over 180 services for which there were unbundled fees they charged. And they had catalog, they had product numbers, and if you want to buy this particular service, it's going to cost you this much per hour or this much whatever. And there's a big enough markup in it that the service division can make a profit. And if the grocery logistics division wanted to give away some of these services to try to get the grocery contract volume, then the service division would just bill the difference to the grocery guys, who get all upset because that would hurt their bottom line and their bonuses, but it kept everybody honest. So since the 80s, most retail channels, think 1976, authorized TV dealers buying from authorized TV brand distributors, and their authorized TV reps in the state of Pennsylvania who get 5% of everything sold in Pennsylvania, they're all gone. It's all gone. So that the traditional channel of independent factory reps and independent distributors and independent dealers, it's all gone. It has been massive consolidation across all these retail channels. And the category killers have moved in, and a lot of them backward integrated and have their own DCs and so forth. Another big, sort of trend is SAP pioneered their process ERP software in elaborate manufacturing companies. Think manufacturing tanks or something. And so they took all these best practices from all these different manufacturers and came up with this elaborate software which got more and more expensive and more complicated just to install and run, to the point where you don't make any modifications. You just put in their system and change your business to meet their, quote, best processes. And people were saying, well, we put this thing in, it costs a fortune, it's taken forever, this is a disaster. Where's the good news? Well, one of the elements of the SAP toolkit is central spend, and particularly on MRO, maintenance, repair, and operating items, or maverick purchasing, like, oh, here's a random little item and somebody went and bought it on their expense account, and they put it through this way, and they paid all this extra money and all this extra internal paperwork. Why didn't they buy it out of our central receiving area where it takes 15 weeks to get the stuff to the guy who needs his safety glasses? So in the early 90s, they were making huge penetration in big manufacturing companies in America, who then turned around and started to usher in integrated sole MRO supply contracting. So that's become a huge trend, and it's still a growing trend. And there are integrated supply distributors who continue to rip off huge chunks of business from traditional independent MRO kind of distributors in a given town that had one of 15 factories, that a big manufacturing company owned across the United States. The flip happened from product pushing to demand replenishment in the mid 90s in the hospital supply channel. At the time, Baxter, well, in the late 70s, I think, maybe early 80s, Baxter International bought American Hospital Supply and renamed it Baxter Hospital Supply or something. Then they turned around and spun that off as Allegiance in 1996. And Allegiance did a fantastic turnaround and then merged into Cardinal Health. So Allegiance doesn't exist anymore. Now it's part of Cardinal Health. But back in the mid-80s, Baxter Hospital Supply was working on a concept called Value Link, where we don't want to deliver cases of stuff to your back door at the central distribution dock and have internal people in the hospital get at the supply closets. How about if our person just takes care of the supply closets and tops the supply closets off on a very efficient basis, and gets rid of internal intermediate handoffs and all the paperwork that goes with it, and then the lousy maintenance of inventory at the closet because you get 3 shifts of people who don't own the process and so forth. And so anyway, it really took off, and I refer you to a fantastic detailed analysis of that particular case in a book at the bottom here called Islands of Profit in a Sea of Red Ink. And it's well worth the read. In 2001, the National Association of Purchasing Managers, who trains all these education programs for career purchasing people in corporate 2000 kind of corporations, changed their name to the Institute of Supply Management. Now, trade associations are venerable, wonderful things, but they necessarily have to lag what's going on. When 65% of the members say, hey, we want to change, then they change. And so that's when they changed to their name to the Institute of Supply Management. Also, I would say from the mid-90s on, certainly from very large corporations with SAP doing integrated sole supply, they started saying, I'm not VP of purchasing, I'm VP of supply chain, which would ask, well, fine, then where at a distributor level, where distributors out there listening, who is your vice president of supply chain solutions? I mean, who's your counterpart that can go out at a high level and say, let's talk big picture turkey here and figure it out? But in every one of these cases, the product pushing salespeople basically disappeared, and a new, smaller cadre of consultants, supply chain consultants, replace them. So if they go back to Sam Walton and say, no more reps, but I want a supply chain executive. So it's a whole different way of interfacing with the customer. So that, we still need some sort of sales creature. The bottom line is this: as the life cycle of an industry changes, every stage needs a different kind of sales force with a different skill set paid in a different way. You cannot keep the same people in the same model you've had for 100 years. If you do, and the environment's changing, it's like the frog sitting in the water, and the water heats up so slowly the frog does not know he's getting boiled alive till it's too late and he can't move and he just dies. So in all these stories, there was one person, a McKesson, a SuperValu, a Baxter, who basically figured out how to get it how to lead and take it to the market, and they were huge winners, and all these other distributors were huge losers. So I guess the question is, in your particular channel, are you going to be the supply chain winner? You're going to be the supply chain loser? Are you a frog that's being boiled right now and you just didn't know it? So I'll leave you with that happy thought. Thank you.